Kim and Carl, how are you?
Very
Good,
well, thank you.
thanks. Yeah. How are you?
Good. I'm good. I'm good. I got a bit stressed. I went down to the studio about 6 o'clock. I was going to do sort of 45 minutes on a live and then obviously jump off. And then I got there and I was like, internet's not working, can't connect. And then I phoned the guy who owns the building that I work out of, and he said, "Oh, the internet's been down since Friday." I was like, "Oh, that's nice. You could have told me."
Oh,
Yeah, but
Lucky we didn't come all the way to Wales today then.
well, that's what I
well,
said.
well, you can do the face to face without the internet. It's all just
Ah,
pre-recorded, all
okay.
logged on cameras. So I've got It'd be nice for you guys to come over one day because the setup now it looks really really professional,
Yeah.
really really good. I'm
Yeah.
so made up with it.
Right,
I've
fab.
um I've spent a small fortune on it, so it's something that doesn't need changing now. I can use it for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and
Oh, so it's yours, is
the
it?
the
All set
quality.
up just for you?
Yeah, it's mine. It's mine. I own everything in there. I built the studio myself,
Oh,
and
wow.
Nice.
it's cool. It's really, really cool. It's got like a little producers area, then it's got the table that you sit on with the podcast, and it's cool. It's cool.
So do you rent it out?
So that's what I'm going to be doing.
Uh-huh.
The plan is to rent it out. So they've got podcast studios in Chester, and they rent them out for £1,000 an episode.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
So I've said I'll charge £50 for a 30-minute episode or £100 for an hour. I mean, you can't get much cheaper than that, right?
No. Cool.
No, that's fab. It's good.
So obviously I came across you guys on TikTok. Um, you were working your magic on there on the lives, helping people. Obviously we've spoken in the past. The reason that I've sort of come into this space is spent 20 years in addiction. Didn't realize at the time it was because of trauma. Um, but then the work that I've been doing myself this year, I'm doing a level 7 at the moment in trauma informed psychology.
Nice.
Um, and I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving what I'm doing. I believe this is what I was meant to do all along. Um, and obviously coming across people like you and other like-minded people, this has helped me along my journey. And so today is all about Kim and Carl, what you guys do. And, and we'll start from the beginning. A true romance story, right? So, I mean, we'll start if one of you wants to take it away, and then we'll figure it out as we go. It easy enough.
Go on, it,
You know,
Kim.
where did this story start?
So I will start. So we met about 8.5 years ago, and Carl worked in mental health, and I had mental health, but we I didn't realise what he did until we actually, sat down, and then something happened, and then he said, "Oh, do you want me to show you what I do?" And I thought, "Oh, this is a bit weird," and but then it actually worked, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, I've had so many years of like therapy and everything." So then I thought, "Oh well, he might be a bit of a keeper." So then
Oh,
I know, bless you. Then we kind of went on dates and whatnot, and then here we are. So I think we soon realised that we had we had similar values, and we had a lot in common. And we both had a mission to help people. And because of things that we'd been through ourselves, we were both on our second marriage. Well, we are now on our second marriage, and we'd both been in a relationship for over 20 years. So it was nice that we kind of found each other at that point in our lives, and we're the same age, and that was quite nice, similar upbringing and things. So yeah, it's I don't know if I missed anything, Carl. I've missed a lot, but
no, I don't think you have. I think that's our little love adventure.
yeah, yeah.
Well, it's funny because so I was married before my partner. She was married before. We both got two kids, similar age. We're both the same age. We were married for the same amount of time.
How funny.
Um, she's she's not what she's a district nurse, and she's really, really good at it. Like, she goes above and beyond. She's incredible at her job, and she's taught me a lot. You know, she's taught me a lot about myself, a lot about what it is to be human. Um, I believe I lived a lot of my life using somebody else's values, somebody else's words, somebody else's lifestyle. You know, I'll give you a 2 second snippet into my life. So,
Lovely.
mum and dad split up before I was born. Dad was a drug addict. Well, dad is a drug addict. My mother was besotted with my father, and because I reminded her of my father, she took it out on me. Um, there was a lot of physical violence involved, a lot of mental torture, mental warfare, as I don't like to call it that, but that's what I call it. And I was used as a weapon against between both of them. You know, I won't go into the nitty gritty, but I was used as a pawn really in the war between parents. And I grew up a very fragile kid. Um, Always good at sports, but I was good artistically as well. I could write stories, I could sing. Um, and I lost all that artistic flair as I got older. And just as soon as I started drinking at 16, 17, I started using cocaine, and I did it for the next 20 years. Um, and it destroyed, I don't want to say destroyed, almost destroyed my life. Um, about 3.5 years ago, I tried to end my life. Luckily enough, I woke up the next day, and a couple of weeks later, I met my missus, and when people say you hit rock bottom, right? I hit my rock bottom that time, and I carried on. That's the scariest thing. Carried on using, um, and then I just made a conscious choice. Back end of last year, I said, "That's it. I'm never drinking again. I'm never going to use again," and I stopped, and I've never done it since. And
Amazing.
it's been this year has been the most difficult year of my life, but at the same time, it's been the most beautiful. And I'm so grateful for the life that I have now. But this is how I come across people like yourselves, people like you who are willing to help heal with the traumas and the addictions and all these negative aspects of who we are as human beings that we give identity to, right? So I guess my first question is more so for Carl, maybe, because you said you met Carl when he was working in mental health. Was how did you know that this was something that you wanted to do, helping people?
Okay. Well, I suffered from major childhood trauma. My dad was in the military. He suffered from military PTSD. So as a result of that, I was his punch bag. So my everyday survival was to go to school and get out of the violent environment. So I learned from a very young age. I was the kid that sat in the back classroom with my back to the wall, monitoring the whole environment. So I love school. A bit like yourself, I love sport, I love singing, I love drawing, the creative side, because that was my escapism from my trauma. But underneath all this, even though we have such, in a sense, shitty history and parents, I had a resolve in myself that I want to help people like my dad when I get older. So I come from a large family of 13 uncles and aunties on my mum's side, and even bigger on my dad's side. So it's quite a... And in my mum's side, you're either a builder or you're a social worker or in that kind of field. So I left school and I trained to be a plasterer. Loved that, really enjoyed it, but the recession came and the building industry literally collapsed. So I found work in residential services for adults with learning disabilities and absolutely loved that. And every week I used to take the clients to weekly therapy sessions on a Friday. And the therapists would turn up in their nice Porsche. And then I'd be sitting with the clients in case, they messed around with their behaviour. And I was thinking, this woman doesn't actually do anything. She comes every Friday for 2 hours. The clients sit and talk about the same stuff they spoke about for the last 6 months. So I started questioning, now, what do you do? How do I get qualified in this? And she told me, so I trained to become a counsellor. 2 years to study. And I eventually took over her role in the company. So I became the company's group therapist. But I still had this ego in me that I want to help people with trauma. So I quickly learned that talking about trauma doesn't actually resolve it, because trauma is encoded in part of the brain that doesn't actually understand language. So talking to my peers, I then trained in hypnosis, which was absolutely fantastic. Saw a huge change with that. And then I think about 25 years ago, I found one of those strange tapping techniques on YouTube. I think we still at the computer then, we was just doing that old-fashioned dial-up noise going ding, where you spend 2 hours to get... So how YouTube worked back then, oh, God only knows. But I found myself going down the route of what we call psychosensory techniques, a psycho brain sensory touch. So I trained in various modalities of that. Then I trained in various modalities of certain eye movement therapies. And then, suppose, what would you say, Kim, 3 to 4 years, we kind of took the best of all these modalities and created our own, in a sense, our own technique that we use here at the Manse Retreat. So I came into this work because of my own childhood trauma, basically, and my upbringing. So I was hypnotized by my parents, because that's how I see it. Our parents are our greatest and our worst hypnotists. That we take on their belief structure, like what you said. It's not our voice. Our school teachers, our uncles and aunties, our brothers and sisters, our friends are all our hypnotists. When you begin to wake up and you understand this, then you begin to learn you can actually change how you feel. And that's the true power. And like you said, last year you had a really crappy year. Well, so did Kim and I, because my 28-year-old son suddenly died last February of a heart attack. So that is, again, major trauma, losing a child. Yet Kim and I, we still get up every day and we do the work that we do because this is our purpose. A bit like you found your purpose now. It's just I've been doing mine a bit longer. That's all.
First of all, I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't know that. But it's funny, isn't it? Because a friend of mine, he's a psychotherapist for the NHS in North Wales, and he told me something the other week, and it's I've thought about it a lot, and it makes so much sense. And Kim, you could probably answer this: is pain sees pain, pain understands pain, and it's funny how some of the people that have experienced so much pain in the world are empaths. You know, we feel so much emotion, and just talking about it now gets me emotional because we understand what that pain is. And I know we're all different, right? But pain is fucking pain, you know. And I believe the world's in the most painful place it's ever been at the moment. There's everybody you speak to is struggling with something. And, you know, I had a guy who was on the podcast the other day, and he said to me, I've not really experienced any trauma. And it was like a shock. It was like, wow, you know, there's somebody out there who's normal. But yeah, I mean, for you, Kim, I guess, you know, pain sees pain, right? And I think that's a valuable tool to have when you're trying to help people heal.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think, like Carl said, you know, my upbringing was different. I would never say I had trauma. I would always have said my upbringing was fine. But I always knew that I didn't want to do what my parents did. I wanted to be different to them. I knew it wasn't right the way that they had brought my brother and I up. And my brother is really, he can be quite, he gets upset about it. He can get quite upset about the way they are or have been. So I just knew that I wanted to be different to that. And just accepted that we don't get a handbook, and we dealt with the cards we're given, and we have to deal with what we have on a daily basis the best we can. And sometimes we get it wrong, and sometimes we get it right. And when you can only live by your own experiences, and like you say, if you've had pain, you can see pain and you can try and help people, and you want to help people. And I think that's where I come from, that space.
Can I just add a really powerful story to that?
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up, I said to myself, if I ever have children, I'm never going to hit them, right? Because I was hit every day. But one day, I think my son was about 13, 14, I hit him over the back of the shoulder, over something trivial. And when he was about 21, we was having a conversation, and he said to me, "Do you remember, Dad, when you hit me?" And it carried on. But I tried to justify my behaviour by saying, yeah, but at least you wasn't hit every day. So I actually denied him his experience of understanding what it feels like to be hit by your dad. And in that very moment, it was one of the biggest lessons for me, that our perception of our story is ours. But to my son, I still hit him.
You've just said something there that I held on to for 25 years.
Yeah.
The word "but."
Mm.
So my mother, I won't. There was weapons sometimes involved with me. I'd be forced to eat certain things, and I had the conversation with her last year. I got really emotional over it, and I'm not an angry person at all. They call me the gentle giant and soft as shit. You know, I'm a big 6'6". I can have a scrap if I need to, but I don't like violence. Hate it. Um, and that's the only thing that's ever made me angry. Is my partner went to my mum's and asked her. She said, "You know, you need to apologise, sincerely apologise for the stuff you've done." And when she apologised, she said, "Yeah, I did do those things, but
Mm.
you would." She said, "You." If she used to ground me, she'd lock me in my bedroom. I'd sit on my own for 2 days, no problem. I've always been comfortable being alone. So she said, "I couldn't do that to you." She said, "I had to hit you. I had to do these things." I was thinking, no, you didn't. But it was that word. It was every time there was a admission of guilt or an apology, there was a but at the end, and it didn't feel real. But like you said there, Carl, I always said the same about. I've got two children. My son's 17, my daughter's 13. I think I've smacked my daughter on the backside once in a whole life, and it broke my heart when I've done it.
Yeah.
But my son, you know, there has been a few times where I've smacked him, and it's funny because we say we'd never do these things, but we live in repetition. We live in cycles of our parents unconsciously. We don't know we're doing them.
Mm.
And we had a difficult moment a couple of weeks ago where we nearly ended up fighting. And I'm embarrassed to say that, but he's 17. He wants to take on his dad. You know, he wants to start getting lippy. Um, but I got really emotional after it because I was like, this is something that I never wanted my son to experience.
Uh-huh.
But like Kim said, life doesn't come with a guidebook or a set of rules that you can follow as being a child or a parent or just a human being in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, that hit home then when you said "but." It's just it's it's a tough one, right?
Yeah, it is tough because I used to be a therapist in the children's residential services, and so I used to sit there in review meetings, and some of the things these children listen to got from their parents. You know, we'd have social workers, a psychiatrist, everybody around the table. And this one young lad once, he had all cigarette butts all over, burns over his arms, and his mum sat there and she said, "I only had you so you could be a drug lookout." And yet that child still wanted to leave the children's home and go and live with his mum. Because love is a strange connection, isn't it?
Funny, I've been reading some of Bowlby's theory of attachment today.
All right, yeah.
You know, and it's that we seek the validation from our carers, because for a lot of us, that's all we know. So whether that's positive or negative, we always seek that caregiver's attention because they're the ones that we've always been around. And it was the same with my father. My father was never around, but I'd always seek his attention. I'd always want his attention. I'd always want him to notice me, even though I knew it was probably going to be painful or detrimental at the end of it. Even when he told me that he didn't love me when I was a teenager, I still wanted to have a relationship with him. Love's a strange thing, right?
Yeah, I can touch on that as well. My dad left when I was 4. He came back for a little bit and went again when I was 9. And yet you ask him, he's Scottish. I love the idea of being connected to Scotland. Love wearing a kilt. I love anything to do with the military. And yet I've not seen this man for almost 50 years.
Why do you think that is?
Do you know what? I've never really thought about it. It is probably that bond that even if it's artificial, because that's what it is artificial, it's not around.
Do you think it's because you never experienced it, so you want that experience?
No, because then it would still be fake anyway, wouldn't it? And I don't come
Yeah,
from, I
that's
try
a
not to
good
come from
point.
a place of fakeness. I try to come from a place of, this is the present reality. My past is made up when I think about it now. You know, I'm no longer being beaten up by my dad, but if I wanted to, I can create the internal misery of that just by thinking about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, if I was to ask you both this question, obviously we can't change the memories of the past. The memory will always be there, right? But rightly or wrongly, you might correct me in this. My perception of what it is now, we can't change the memory, but we can change the emotional association to the memory, right? So, 2 questions. First of all, how do you perceive doing that? And that probably brings us into your method. Second of all, why do you think there is so many people struggling at this moment in time? What do you think, if you could put it down to a few key points, what do you think that those reasons are?
I think the first key one is people are still told by the establishment that you can't change how you feel. Because there's money and there's profit in giving you medication and making you go down a certain route. And that's always going to happen, I'm afraid. We're not taught by as children to empower ourselves. Society puts us in this place. Education, still, you know, we have a big high influx of all the disorders, don't we? ADHD, whatever D you want to call it. But there'd be a medication for that. Why are we not changing the education system that those children are not okay to sit still in a chair? Why are we not taking them to a garage warehouse or teaching them using their hands like you was? You was great at art and singing. Why can't we teach them to express their ways through that? So I think the system keeps us regimented into that mental health structure. But psychiatrists, psychologists still tell people if you have trauma, you have it for the rest of your life.
And I think that's because they actually do believe that, because that's what they were trained at the time. And even though there's research and neuroscience has come a long way, and you know we've got papers. That's how we know why it works, how it works in our training, which we'll come on to. Obviously, we explain all of that. Yet, I mean, we just go onto YouTube and can download the information. It's not hard to find. Yet they haven't updated that training. So people who are still training to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist are still trained that you cannot do anything about PTSD. You cannot. It's for life. That's why they created what's it? CBT, PCBT. So it's TCBT, sorry, trauma. But it's still talking. And if that part of the brain doesn't understand language, why are we talking to it? And if the evidence shows you that increasing delta waves can change the landscape of that trauma, and then you can, I mean, obviously there's a whole process to it, but if you can change that, why would you not do that? And like Carl said, because society tells us otherwise. And then people become almost kind of not content, but they kind of get comfort in their diagnosis, because it gives them almost an identity. Then they kind of know who they are. They're in a position they can say, I have got PTSD. And if you say, I can help you with that, some people are like, oh my God, please, I just do it now. Other people are, oh, well, I'm not ready just yet. Why would you want to carry on suffering? I always say to people, why do you want to carry on suffering? Why do you want to feel pain? We can't change history, this is what we say, but you can change how you feel about it.
Yeah, it's because recovery begins when the brain feels safe enough to stop running.
Yeah. But the problem is they're always in that running. People are always in that running. And we're the same, you know, it's happened with us. So we know, we understand, we're lived experience from it.
So I think, so for me, I agree with everything you both said there. You know, even I read a book about Henry Ford last year, how he integrated his business and workmanship into the school curriculum in America in the 1920s or 1930s. So basically, the majority of the schools in America it was like a conveyor belt for workers. And I believe that sort of that process of conveyor belts out of the majority of schools across the world have that sort of that output, that process where we'll tell kids to sit down, shut up, be quiet, pay attention. They'll eat when they're told. They'll dress what they're told to wear. They will wear what they're told to wear. Um, I one of the thoughts I've always had is when it was summertime when I was a kid, and we'd be dead excited to go and play on the grass outside, and we'd go out, and literally as we were about to get onto the grass, the teachers would go, "No, you can't go on that grass."
Yeah.
And it's that sort of mindset that you're talking about there, Carl. Is you know, we're not. If you look at the Scandinavian school curriculum, they're fantastic. The way that they educate their children, their crime rates are so low, and it all stems from their school curriculum and how they raise children. If they're good at something, they really focus in on those gifts of whatever those children have got. You know, and we don't do that. We're told you have to pay attention to geography or history or RE or whatever it is. And a lot, like you said there, you know, kinesthetically, a lot of children aren't trained. You know, we're trained to use this and not with the hand. I'm shit with my hands. I'm absolutely useless. But I'm good with images. That's my skill visually. I learn well with pictures. I suppose the next question is, it probably brings you on to your method. I've heard of something called bilateral stimulation. Now, I've watched you two guys do your work. It looks very similar, but I'd like to, if possible, you tell me your secrets of what you of what you do and how you do it. I've studied a little bit of NLP, and the guy who's mentoring me is a psychologist and an NLP master. We'll call him. So we're doing a lot of work with emotions and images in the brain. But I know I've seen you guys doing your thing on social media, and it looks like the tapping process. I don't really understand the tapping process. I think, Kim, you touched on it there, some waves in the brain. I can't remember what you said. But yeah, if you would, please.
Yeah. Well, if you've done NLP, you know about modelling then, that humans model each other. You know,
Yeah.
you can become the best addict because you've modelled maybe the first 5 people around you. Yeah. Same as if you're surrounded around 5 millionaires, you're more likely to be a millionaire or become one.
Good.
Yeah. So modeling is basically what we do here. So I've modeled all these other creators of different techniques, and we brought it together under the Mance method. Now, I don't want to keep going too far down the rabbit hole regarding neuroscience, but so I try and keep, because we just finished an actual training yesterday with practitioners, so we've got a few more coming out. But when you have trauma or something unpleasant happens to you as a human or as a child, we have different brainwave frequencies. Okay. Now we have what's called a gamma wave, which is the fastest brainwave frequency. So if I give an example of my childhood and seeing my dad coming towards me with his fist, in that moment as a child, my brainwave fires off that high frequency gamma wave. It says, you need to remember this, okay, because it's not going to be very pleasant. So that brain, we have all the different frequencies on our brain, but in that moment, a 100 hertz gamma wave goes over your brain and it communicates with part of the brain called the amygdala. Then the amygdala part of the brain deals with your emotions, okay? Within that, we have other structures like the hippocampus. If you imagine the hippocampus is a bit like your library.
Emotional library, right?
Yeah, and then we have the thalamus, which is a bit like your sorting office. So I'd be upstairs in bed and I could hear my dad coming upstairs. So straight away, I can hear the footsteps. That sensory information gets what's called transduced. Our brain only works in electrical chemical signals. So any one of our senses, so I'd hear my dad come up the stairs, so my previous experience with my dad, the hippocampus goes, we got a book here in that library that when your dad comes up the stairs like this, you get a beating, which fires off the amygdala that tells it, danger's coming. So not only am I hearing him now come up the stairs, I can smell him. Yeah, I can smell anger, because as a child with trauma, anger resonates some kind of like smell, which is very powerful. Olfactory is the only one of our senses that goes directly to the amygdala. So I can hear him, he's now swearing, coming up the stairs. My hippocampus is going, it's like pulling out hundreds of books. This is what your dad does. This is the amygdala's firing off. I'm now flooded as a little child, sitting there shaking, fight or flight. Where do I go? Do I hide under the bed? No, don't hide under the bed, because last time he dragged me out under the bed and beat the shit out of me. Can I hide under the wardrobe? Can I hide in the wardrobe? No, because he'd find me. So in that moment, I freezed. The door opens. I know what's coming. So the gamma wave shoots over the brain, reinforces and encodes that memory with all the rest of them. So as an adult, I can hear a certain noise coming from outside, and it reminds me of my dad's footsteps, even though he's not here. But to the brain, it still thinks it's there in that moment, because trauma doesn't get encoded correctly. It doesn't get stored. It doesn't get time-stamped in the hippocampus, so it still thinks it's happening again. So what we discovered is that, and neuroscience, that this high-frequency gamma wave, as it goes across the brain, there are certain receptors in our neurons in our brain, okay, called AMPA receptors. Now, AMPA receptors, specifically on what's called the basal lateral amygdala, they come to the surface when anything's like excitatory. So glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter. So that gamma wave is fired off neurochemicals in the brain. It says, you need to remember this, Cole, because something bad's about to happen. So more AMPA receptors come to the surface, okay? And they get glued on by an enzyme called PKM-Zito. Now, that's a bit like the super glue that basically locks the trauma in place. From these AMPA receptors, it now tells the rest of the body what to do, produce all the stress hormones, that next time this happens, these AMPA receptors are locked on place now. And we perceived years ago that once these AMPA receptors are locked on, there is no domain to switch it off. So that's why just even thinking about my childhood trauma, I can flash back and get into the state of what I was then, because the hippocampus still thinks it's happening now. The AMPA receptors are still firing off. Just by even thinking about it can create the symptoms of trauma, flashbacks, nightmares, insomnia. rage, anger, whatever. So that is what we call the encoding of trauma. It happens to every human being. The beauty of this technique that we kind of created is every human being's story is different. Me being beat by my dad, you being forced to eat what you want, Kim doing this, abuse, whatever. But every human being, don't matter what your age is, your culture, your beliefs, every human encodes trauma exactly the same way in the brain. Yeah? So neuroscience discovered, because of neuroimaging and bits and pieces, that if you get someone to think about their unpleasant memory, and straight after you get someone to, so when they think about it, you fire off those AMPA receptors. It's almost like they come alive. If within that moment you start doing some strange things like stroking your face, okay, tapping, moving your eyes, you increase what's called a delta wave in the brain. Now, a delta wave on an EEG machine is the slowest frequency. It's the opposite of the very fast gamma wave, basically. So delta waves are what you do when you're predominantly in the deep sleep, or your body's healing itself, okay? Then, with the delta wave, because that's oscillating at a certain electrical frequency in the brain, it tells the brain that you're safe, you're okay. Now, a good example of that, if you're a parent, if a baby's crying its eyes out when it's like 6 months of age, do you tell it to shut up and be quiet? No, because a baby doesn't understand language. But what the guardian or parents do is they'll pick the baby up and they give it a cuddle, or they massage the baby's face. So every human being is hardwired that delta waves causes a state of relaxation, stillness and calmness. So delta waves coming through the brain with other neurochemicals. I don't want to go into what the big names for because it gets confusing, but literally what happens, because that's oscillating that slow frequency, they literally dephosphorylate. In other words, they unglue the AMPA receptors from the surface. So the AMPA receptors, you roughly have about 10-15 minutes once they're fired off to go in and remove them, okay? So with clofazine and dynemin, these are the technical words, they go to the AMPA receptors and literally snip off the AMPA receptors at the surface of the cell so they can be withdrawn, recycled or reused. So no more AMPA receptors on the surface. When you think of the unpleasant memory, you can no longer produce the symptoms of the trauma that you used to be able to beforehand. So what that really means is you still know what happened. We're not going back in history and erasing the past. That's just stupidity. What we're doing is we're delinking the emotion from the memory. So that's all people, they say, well, I'm not going to have flashbacks. I'm not going to have nightmares. I'm not going to cry anymore when I think about it. No.
So I don't know that much, but I know a bit. So I know the triune model of the brain. So the limbic system, the neocortex, the reptilian brain. So I understand what the amygdala is, the hippocampus, and then the HPA axis. I know that process as well. What I didn't know, I haven't heard before, is about delta and gamma waves. So correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to sort of regurgitate or try and regurgitate what you said. I'll get it wrong. Gamma waves are created with trauma. Delta waves is what's activated in the REM sleep when we're asleep with the eye movement, right? And is EMDR, is that the same process as the REM sleep then when we're sleeping? Is that sort of a similar process?
We're mimicking the bilateral stimulation. But what also delta is, a baby when they're born, their brain's predominantly in delta. That's why they sleep all the time. Okay, so a baby is predominantly perceived as being safe. All it always worries about is being fed. And that's our brain. Remember, our brain is basically a machine that predicts. It works on predictions. So the delta wave, actually, I've got my little brain here. I can show you, look. I just saw it there. So we have the cortex, the human part of the brain here, okay, and then we have the limbic system. In trauma, this is where the trauma is stored, within the amygdala and the hippocampus, Okay. If something's perceived as traumatic, like my dad come upstairs to beat me, the prefrontal cortex, so in the sense our human part of the brain, our logic, awareness, understanding, goes offline. All I'm worried about as a child in that moment is, where can I go to survive? Logic might say, tell you what, Cole, climb out the window. Go somewhere else, but it didn't. Try and reason with your dad. No, there's no logic to that. It's not going to allow me. The emotional part of the brain will always overwin logic. Always. Because it works quicker. It's a survival instinct. Only when you remove those AMPA receptors, this is the beauty of when people come to the retreat, is they can suddenly sit there and they go, ah, yeah, well, that abuse memory happened 40 years ago. So what suddenly happened, that memory and experience no longer has the stress hormones attached to it, okay, because we've removed the AMPA receptors. So now the hippocampus can put a timestamp on it. They still know what happened. They can't produce the symptoms of trauma. So 10 minutes ago, thinking about the memory, they was able to get all the tears, the emotions. They could still see the picture, everything, hear what was going on, feel all the sensations in the body. You do the technique, which takes around about 10 minutes, okay, to remove the AMPA receptors. There's no more tears. There's no more stressful tension in the body. They still know what happened. It's just they won't be able to produce the symptoms anymore.
And it's permanent.
And it's permanent.
Because it's changed its neuroplasticity, which obviously happens all the time.
Yeah.
But it just basically changes the landscape and the way in the brain. And as Carl said, it's time stamps it. So it goes into that logic that, with, what you had for dinner last week. So it doesn't feel like there's no emotion attached to it anymore. And just going on to the EMDR thing. So basically EMDR works really well for people with trauma, because you're looking left and right bilaterally, and what that does is stimulate more the delta. So our brains have all of these going on all the time. Sometimes it's more beta, sometimes it's more theta, depending on what you're doing. Obviously, if you're sleeping, it's more delta, but it's still kind of always changing. It's never all delta or all alpha or whatever.
Yeah.
And what happens is if you've got the PTSD and they send you for EMDR, you're looking left and right, okay, and it brings in more delta, so therefore it helps. They get you to think about the traumatic memory, similar to what we do, and then you do that, okay, and that's one memory. Sometimes it doesn't work. Now, we always say that people should always try different things, because sometimes people can go for counselling and it works. Some people can go and have EMDR and it works. It's the people that have done everything that come to us and say it's not working. And the reason that the Mance method has been successful with people is because, as Carl said, when that gamma wave hits and you something traumatic happens and it encodes, your eyes will go somewhere. So quite often we'll say to someone, think about a traumatic, and they'll go, oh yeah, I can, yeah. And is it a picture? Yeah, I can see it. I can, like this. Okay. So they're looking up here. Now, if you're looking up here and you're doing this, it's not going to get to it. Okay. What we do is we get you to do all different things. So because of the way the research is and we looked at it, we get you to do all 4 quadrants. So your eyes are going in. So at some point you're going to hit that trauma, and then it's going to have the reaction. So because you're almost putting the delta, you're almost rubbing it out that wherever it is. So it's not only that, it's also the bringing in more delta with the stroking of the face. It's bringing in more delta with the tapping. The breathing brings you into the parasympathetic state, so it's calming the heart rate, etc. So all of these things, and also the words we use, peace and release. Bit for hypnosis, you're telling yourself, release.
Bringing in working memory.
You're bringing in working memory. Because you can only do one emotion at a time. You can only think of one thing at a time. Okay. So if you're doing all of that and you have initially thought this memory and it's become unstable, you're then bringing in, flooding it with delta, all the AMPA receptors have gone, it then changes it and it's permanent, as I say. So that's basically what it did. That's what it does. Sorry.
A great analogy is you imagine your unpleasant memories on a DVD disc and you put it in and you can play it and it says, Cole's memory of his dad. And up on the screen comes the memory of my dad hitting me, whatever. What we do is we fire off that memory. But what often happens with humans subconsciously, the trauma loop keeps playing. So our whole purpose is to break the trauma loop. So we fire off the AMP receptors. That's when I hit the eject button. I take it out. We stroke the face. So it's like putting a scratch over the disc. When you stroke, neuroscientists, specifically Melvin Harper, discovered you actually increase delta wave in your brain by up to 90-fold. That's huge. That's about 8,000 some odd percent.
Over 8,000.
Yeah. So let's put scratches over it. While you're stroking your face, we ask you to, I don't know, name any city, town or country begin with S, for example. What does that do? Well, this then has to come from the prefrontal cortex, a human part of the brain. Okay, so we do it on purpose, a bit sneaky really. More scratches over it. Tapping, saying peace and release. Delta, again. Moving the eyes in the infinity 8. Delta really spikes. If you put someone with an EEG and then they move their eyes, you see a massive spike in delta, another scratch. We then ask you to think of a really pleasant or happy memory, okay, which releases different neurochemicals in the brain, oxytocin, GABA, serotonin, more scratches. So when you put it into the player to try and play the same way, it just doesn't play the same way anymore. Because we've broken the trauma loop. Most people stay in the trauma loop. But because of the things we ask you to do, and with the delta, your brain learns a new way of playing it. Regarding neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself. And it can happen in minutes.
So then that trauma then just becomes a memory. It's no longer traumatic then, right?
People say, well, just like watching Harry Potter, if you love Harry Potter. Yeah, it's just...
So my addictive voice is called Voldemort.
Yeah.
So I used a technique called ABRT, which is addictive voice recognition techniques. So basically, it's not a dissociation technique; it's a recognition technique. So I let's take for instance where it's a sunny day and my brain goes, fancy a pint. I know what happens. I can't just have one pint. I'd be out for 3 days. I'd end up manically depressed, and it's just not a nice place to go.
Back in the
As soon
loop.
as I hit, soon as I hear that voice, I fancy a pint. I go Voldemort straight away, and instantly it takes me out of that cycle, and I move on instantly, literally, because I know it's my addiction trying to deceive me into doing whatever it wants to.
Yeah.
Again, it's not dissociation. It sounds like I am, but it's me. I know it's me. It's just a way of understanding my thought process a little better. That's
Yeah.
it.
You're controlling the program.
Sorry?
You're controlling the program.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We do that. We do that with people here. We say to them, like, think of the unpleasant memory, and now that person expression on their face, like my dad coming towards me with his fist. If I shove a clown nose on him and change his voice, like, it's like putting scratches over the disc again. So when I try and see that memory, it doesn't play the same way because this new imprint overlaps it.
Yeah. Okay. So even though you're not necessarily replaying that memory again, are you? You're making a new one.
Well, every time you go back to any memory, it's not the way it was encoded as a look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. It's funny because when you initially started talking there about your father, I went through the same thought processing. Shall I hide under the bed? Should I hide? And mine was I'd hide in the bed. I'd always hide in the bed, and then the fist would come over the top of the bed quilts. That's what had happened. Then you said noises, so I could hear. I'd always know what was going to happen because she'd start talking to herself.
All right.
And that's when I knew I was going to get a kick in or a beating or whatever it was. And then you mentioned smell. Kebab houses, kebab meat is the smell that I always remember
Oh, okay.
because she didn't really drink much, but the times that I remember was the time where she'd come home with food after being out. And they may not be, the beating might not be connected to the food. I don't know, but that's the smells I remember of when there was violence involved or whatever it's so. But when you started mentioning, say, places, I don't know whether you've seen, I started moving my eyes. Um, and the first thing I wanted to do, well, I'm doing it now, the first thing I wanted to do when I moved my eyes was smile.
Yeah.
Um, and that's cool. I like that. I'm not saying, it's having its effect is obviously, I'm just purely listening to what you're saying, but by me just doing the movements myself, what you're saying, it's having that positive effect. And we're not even in the same room. And it was just,
Mm.
it took me, so I've been studying polyvagal theory by Stephen Porges.
Mhm.
When they talk about ventral vagal, dorsal vagal, sympathetic, parasympathetic. Over the last couple of days, I don't know whether I had a virus, but I've struggled the last 2 days. If we're talking polyvagal theory, I was operating from the diaphragm, very low mood, almost close. I think I was burnt out. There's a lot of work and I've been quite emotional over the last week. Um, and I was thinking of ways to try and lift myself and I couldn't do it. I was trying the mindfulness work, thinking of my grandfather who was my hero. And every time I think of him, it was really positive. Um, so I'm going to try that next time. I'm going to try the eye movement, the touch. I'll touch my face. My missus will think I've lost my fucking mind. I've just sat there rubbing my face, but it seemed quite
Do,
warm then when I was,
do you know
when
what the
you,
power is though? Is you can even just imagine doing this technique and it still works. That's how powerful the brain is. So I have someone here in the office and we get people to write out what we call a peace list when they come. Now, a peace list is all the unpleasant memories and experiences that they can recall from birth up to present. Some people come here and they just have 4, but really big traumas. Other people come here with 4 pages. And after we change about 5 or 6 memories, I say to them, do you want to see something really strange and cool? They go, yeah, yeah. This next memory we're going to work on, and this is the beauty of the technique, people don't have to talk about it. Okay? As I say, I want you to imagine stroking your face. I want you to imagine that you're tapping. And the SUDS level, SUDS is subjective unit of distress or discomfort. It's kind of like a therapeutic term. So their unpleasant memory when they think about it might have been a 9 when they're thinking about it. After one round of doing the method, it might drop to 4 just by thinking about doing the technique. Because the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and what's made up.
yeah.
That's how powerful it is.
So I knew the last bit. I knew the brain doesn't know the difference between reality and what's made up. I didn't know the other bit that you said. I've seen a study. I like basketball, and I watched or listened to a study last year where they had 3 groups of people to shoot free throws at the hoop. The first group physically threw the ball. The second group did nothing, and the third group just thought about shooting the ball. And obviously, the guys who were physically throwing the ball improved the most. But the people who just thought about shooting the ball improved by I'm going to throw a number out there. It might be wrong. About 2% less than the physical. So, and they did nothing. And they did it with powerlifters and bodybuilders as well. They just thought about lifting weights and they seen an increase in muscle mass. That is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So all this stuff that the patterns of unpleasant memories, experiences that drive addictive behavior, just go in and change the unpleasant memories and experiences. You still know what's going to happen. You still know what happened, but because the body and the brain now perceives itself, it's safe, it's okay. It doesn't try to run away. It doesn't try and go to some substance or some food or some gym or whatever you to try and perceive it's safe.
Got a question for Kim. A lot of people are a lot of people are trying to find, me included, purpose, identity, spirituality. Um, until earlier on this year, I thought spirituality was linked to religion, and I didn't think I was spiritual at all. Turns out I am quite spiritual person. A lot of people are looking to psychedelics and things like that at the moment, trying to find their purpose, which I've got no issue with it. It's something that interests me, but I believe it's much more powerful, by the way Carl just mentioned there, doing the inner work, right? Doing the inner work, trying to find out who you are just from using mind, body, spirit, whatever. What would you say the the benefits are from just purely doing this type of work rather than looking to a psychedelic or something external to almost validate your values, your identity?
Right. Well, there's first of all, I think the first thing that people need to consider is when they own whatever it is, my asthma, my sick PTSD, my addiction, you're owning it. You're taking it on. No. Okay. So that's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing I'm going to say is so here I do Reiki, we do massage, we do sound baths, we do all these amazing things here, and they are all part of the whole retreat when you come here. However, none of those things are going to change the brain. None of the things are going to take the memory from the emotion. I have had years and years of therapy, okay? I didn't have EMDR, but I've had lots of therapy. I've had medication. I've had so many different things. I am now like a different person to who I was when I first met Carl because of being able to do all of this. And I've still got more to do. I still get triggered. There's things that still happen. But I now know what to do when I get triggered because I'm 57. Lots of things have happened until now. I'm not going to be able to get all of it sorted within, in my head within a day, things come up at different times in my life. So I would say all of these things are amazing, but if you're trying to sort out what those traumas are, you need to do it the way it's going to work. So what we always say is people say, oh, I've got a therapist and my therapist doesn't want me to come and see you, or my therapist is worried about me coming and thinks I need to, and I say to them, you have your therapist. We're not telling you not to see your therapist. We're just saying you keep talking. All it's going to keep doing is making it worse and worse and worse. And all you're doing is putting in coping mechanisms, or you're putting it in a box and tying it in a little bow and putting it aside. It's always going to be able to come out. However, if you deal with those traumas, detach the memory from the emotion, you can't get it back. You can then see your therapist. You can work on all the things that you need to work on. I felt that I used to do this. Now I know I don't have that emotion driving that anymore. I can now focus. And how do I do this? Okay, I'm going to work with my therapist to do that, or my coach. So we're not saying that there isn't a place for all of that. There absolutely is. But when it comes to trauma, it needs to be decoded in the right way.
I agree. I was going to do an ayahuasca retreat at the beginning of this year. Um, I've done DMT. I did DMT probably 18 months ago. Craziest experience I've ever had. I was crying when I came out of there. I was seeing Vikings. I seen my grandfather. I was seeing all sorts of stuff. When I originally decided to do ayahuasca, I'd been hearing a lot of positive things around it. I was going to go to a retreat and do it all. But then something clicked in me earlier this year, again with the guy who's mentoring me. And I just thought, I'm going to do this myself. I'm going to do, and I genuinely believe for me, what I've done so far is working because when Carl was explaining about the issues before with his father and talking through that memory, and I was going through my memory process, there was a lot less emotional attachment than what there was 6 months ago when I went through that process the last time I did it, because I was crying my eyes out last time. And this time I know that personally, I believe I'm 90% healed, 95%
It's
healed from that
amazing.
trauma. I know what there's work to do. This is why I want to speak to people like yourselves, and the advice that you guys are giving. If anybody's listening, fucking use it. Because nobody's going to fix us but ourselves. You can say all these things, you can do all these things, but unless we're willing to take on what people like yourselves are telling us, nothing changes, man.
Nothing
And
changes.
No, we
We
wouldn't be
haven't.
here.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
I
was
was
going to
just
say we have a saying here that we say that memories buried alive never die. They just show up in a bigger, badder way in your future.
yeah.
memories buried alive never die.
Yeah.
I like
And
it.
it also, the thing is, you know, what, like Carl said, with his son dying last year, it was obviously my stepson. It was really hard. And there was a lot of other stuff going on that was big stuff, you know, independently, they were huge on their own. And it
Yeah.
all happened literally within a week of each
In a
other.
week, yeah.
It was awful. And it was just coming at us from everywhere. But testament to these techniques, because we would not be here having this conversation with you now. You know, we would not be running retreats, welcoming people in. We've got a retreat tomorrow with 2 people turning up. We've got, we would not be doing that if it wasn't for the techniques. Because if we had gone for grief counselling, we would still be there now. We'd still be talking and talking and talking. And don't get me wrong, again, there is a place for it. But just knowing how the brain works, and also from a nutritional perspective, obviously I'm a nutritional therapist. So from a nutritional perspective, just making sure that all of that is considered, so that you're, looking at your liver, how you're methylating, how you're detoxing, all of that is really important.
We're going there in a minute. Don't you worry. What was I going to say then? As soon as you mentioned the word methylation, my brain switched, and I was like, "This is what I want to speak about now." Sorry, the question was, and again, you don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but was there a sort of, after the event that happened last year when you lost your son, was there a sort of time scale? Did it take a certain amount of time to sort of rectify that trauma or get rid of that trauma? Or would you say, obviously that's a really difficult moment in time, right? Was that, if the process lasts the same amount of time as what it would with sort of trauma from 20 years ago?
Uh, well, my mum passed away 25 years ago this year. And whoever said that time's a great healer is the greatest bullshitter. But what I learned is it becomes softer.
Yeah, that's what I say.
And from that, I learned to walk with my grief and not be in my grief. Because grief will wait for you. It'll wait for you to finish the toilet. It'll wait for you to mow the lawn. It will wait for you to finish whatever. But when you suddenly get the phone call out of the blue that your son's died, if I remember correctly the day, Kim was on the phone to somebody. I came in, and I just said to her, James is dead. And so then obviously Kim's had the disbelief of hearing that. And straight away, I think I sat down on the sofa and started stroking, if I can remember correctly, stroking my face, didn't I? Yeah.
Yep.
And then 2 weeks later, Kim had to go to Dubai because she had to help her daughter out. And we had someone come for an all-day retreat here. And their issue was to do with losing children. Not their own, just working with people.
Mm.
And we used to do the sessions where we are now, and on the sideboard over there is all pictures of the family. And she's like, "Oh, who's all these kids and these children?" I said, "Oh, that's Kim's children, and that's my son James." "Oh, okay, what's it?" And I said, "Oh, he passed away 2 weeks ago." And she was like, "What the fuck am I doing here?" And I said, listen. She goes, what's it like to lose a child? And I said, I don't know, but I know what it's like to lose my child. In other words, my perception. So my perception is I've not lost him. He's here. So I have a saying that he's emigrated to heaven. That's all. Just gone somewhere else that I can't see him. So that's that spirituality side. I think a lot of people that do this kind of work to help people, I think they are very spiritual. They have a heart, they have a compassion, they have empathy. So I just do the technique. And I still cry now, spontaneously. I cried yesterday. God knows, I ain't got a clue why. So, but I welcome it because it's a reminder.
And the good thing is you can talk about James and always have, and
Yeah.
we talk about him
Yeah.
every day. We don't, there's none of that kind of awkwardness or silence or anything. It's, you know, even when we meet up with his fiance, we all talk about him all the time. Oh my God, James would have loved that. Oh look, oh God, why did we come here? Because he would have hated it. You know, he's still part of our lives, you know. So and again, I feel like we wouldn't have been able to do that before. I think it would have been too hard. It still is hard.
But
It's hard for me.
on the flip side of that, though, I could easily got up and started drinking a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, Carl did try. He had about 3 days where he wouldn't get out of bed, and I left him. But in the end, I went up there and I said to him, because I know him and I know what, you know, so I just thought, I just need to get him out. I need to get him in nature. And we live in the countryside. And I just thought, he loves that. I need to get him there because I know it'll be good for his soul. So I just said to him, right, you can have your pity party today. Tomorrow we're going to go for a walk. Yeah. And he went, I don't know. And I said, yeah, we'll go for a walk tomorrow. All right, I'll leave you to it. I'll bring you something later. You want a cup of tea? Anyway, so the next day I said, right, come on then, we're going to go for a walk. And he went, I don't know if, and I said, yeah, come on, just go and quick have a shower. Go have a shower, you'll feel better. Just have a shower, you'll feel better. And I got him up and we went for a walk. And he did feel a little bit better, you know, just a little bit, you know, and that's what we did. And I just got him out every day. I just knew I had to get him out every day. And unfortunately, when James died, my mum was actually in the operating theatre because she had had a fall the day before. So we'd spent the day in A&E and we thought she was going to actually pass, but we got the phone call. So then we were back and forth to her. So I said, right, come to the hospital with me. We're going to see my mum. You know, so all of this was going on. So it was just a way to get keep everything going, to get some normality into life.
Yeah. And I think it's important that you said that, right? Because even though for obviously people who have these skills, have these tools, have these abilities to help other people, we've also got to understand that there's a human aspect in there as well. That it's okay to feel sad. You know,
Yep.
it's a lot of people, especially, so when we talk addiction, I stole Gabor Mate's quote, which is addiction is a psychological and emotional response to human suffering. That's my quote now. I made that up. But what that does is, I think for me, a lot of people say it's a disease, it's this, it's a choice, whatever. I think we have to look at the individual and look at their life and look at the life that they've lived.
Yeah.
To say something's a disease, it's like you just caught it and it happened
Yeah.
out of nowhere, right? And that's fine. It's in the you'll know what it's called, the DSM-5 or whatever. It's in there as disease. That's fine. To me, I don't believe it is. I believe it's something that's a lot more deeply ingrained in a human being that's struggled with pain and suffering for such a long time that they just. People say to me about suicide when I tried to take my own life 3 years ago. Some people say it's not a choice. Some people say it's a choice. The fact of the matter is, I just didn't care.
I was going to say, you didn't care at that moment.
No, you don't.
Didn't care. And so my girlfriend, her dad took his own life, 20 years ago, maybe, hung himself. And so she's obviously got the emotional attachment and she says it is a choice, but she says it with empathy. Although they might not be able to see that there's a choice, there is always another choice. And this is like people like yourselves for, let's take me 3 years ago, if somebody would have said there's these two individuals in the Midlands, is it the Midlands you're from?
Yeah.
If somebody would have said there's these two people who can heal your trauma, I'd have said, fuck off, you're full of shit.
Yeah.
You know, I would have. But now I'm sat here with the work that I've done and the work that I'm learning and listening to people like you, and I understand there is that choice. I understand it. And it's not that the choice isn't there. It's just, we just don't care. We
No.
just don't care. And it's important, really important, that people like yourselves who are offering solution-based tools and techniques, I feel they feel just the same as everybody else. And I think leading with that human aspect, that the emotional point is invaluable from let's call it a professional perspective, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just literally a couple of days ago, I had an absolute breakdown and I cried probably more than I have done it in over a year. And I don't know whether it was everything piling up or whatever, but I have not cried that much in ages. And the only thing that stopped me crying was I actually did the Man's method on myself. Because I knew I was sitting there crying and crying and crying, and then I was thinking, what am I doing? Come on. Because I had loads of stuff to do, and I thought, I need to do the stuff. But I couldn't because I was crying. I was crying for about half an hour. But I just kept doing it, and I just kept doing it. And then eventually I kind of calmed down. And then I thought, okay. And then I just got up and carried on.
Yeah.
And you did this without Carl there?
I was downstairs, I was upstairs.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't know it happened.
No, because I didn't need to tell anyone. I just needed to go and be on my own, and I just cried and cried and cried.
So you took responsibility for your own well-being, basically.
Yeah. There was nothing to. I actually. Well, I'm just doing a lot, and I think everything got on top of me. And I
But
think
even after the training yesterday, didn't we? We have that final slide that we show everybody, and it's a wicker basket with loads of toilet paper in it, toilet rolls, and it says this technique only works. No, this technique is a bit like toilet paper. It only works if you use it.
Yeah. Yeah. I make toilet paper for a living, so if you need
you?
any, I can.
Brilliant. Yeah. No, yeah. So that's it. So, you have to use it, and using it in the moment is actually the best thing to do. It's absolutely the best thing to do. So, yeah.
Yeah. And that's where people.
Sorry.
No, I was going to say, that's where people say to us, who will I be without my trauma? You'd be the same person. You just won't have the flashbacks, the nightmares, and the symptoms. We're not erasing history in the past.
I think from my perspective, this is going to sound negative, and I've said this before. Unfortunately, for some people who got trauma or an addiction, unfortunately, that's the most important part of their life sometimes. And I feel as though we hold on to that. Let's take social media, for instance, where you'll have people who their username will be, I don't know, fucking PTSD Steve or something.
Yeah.
You know,
It becomes their identity.
Yeah,
that's what I was saying it before. And it is hard, and I get it, but they can still help other people. They can still go on, and everybody, like I say, everybody has moments. I mean, I could have gone on social media yesterday and said, "Oh, I'm having a really bad day, and look at me crying, and I'm doing the Man's method." No, because that's not me. I don't do that, but I could have. But you can still be human, and you can take away the pain. Why do we want to stay with the pain? That's what I was saying. People have set up their lives around their misery, but they don't have to have the misery to be able to be who they are, and they can help others.
But people find their tribe, don't they?
Yes.
Like when my son died, I joined all the Facebook groups of fathers grieving together. And I'd read all this every day, all these dads, everyone's losing their son or their daughter, and it kept me in my grief.
Mm.
Then I thought, what the bloody hell are you doing, Cole? You're doing the very thing you tell people not to do. So what I started doing is I started joining groups where fathers have actually got on with their life. So I found
Yeah.
my new tribe.
Yeah. And so for me, when I came onto TikTok, um, when I started the podcast, I was just somebody who just came out of a 20-year addiction, and I was like, okay, let's give it a whirl. But somebody asked me when I think I was in a conversation about recovery, and everyone was saying, my name's Jeff, I'm a 20-year alcoholic. And I just said, my name's Lee. And they were like waiting for me to say, like, okay, my name's Lee, and what addict are you? And I just said, my name's Lee.
Good.
And they were like, wow, well, and I said, well, I just had a problem with addiction. I'm not an addict. I had an addiction problem.
No, it's
And
powerful.
that's where the guy who's mentoring me messaged me out of nowhere, and he was like, what made you say that? And we just got chatting, and now he's like a father figure to me.
Amazing.
He told me not to, but no codependency, but we're pals, we're friends. Um, but that was something that I never wanted to do, was allow my pain and suffering to become my identity, because I'm so much more as a human being than pain and suffering.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, really important for us, because when we talk NLP, we talk away from and towards motivation. And I think when we identify as the pain, you're always going to be motivated away from something, right? You're going to be motivated away from the pain. Whereas, we should be motivated towards, right? It's that cheesy quote, isn't it? The rear view mirror. You look, or whatever it is, you look behind you into the rear view mirror for a reason. The past is in the past. And it's people like yourselves who allow us for it to stay there, right? And be present and be mindful and fucking love life. 'Cause it sounds cheesy, but we get one life. We got to have a good go at this shit, man, before we're gone. And I'm very fortunate. A good friend of mine's got stage 4 cancer at the moment, and we played golf the other day, and I was worrying about my job, and then he just said to me, "Bloody hell!" They told me I only had 2 months left to live, and he's been here 8 months because he's doing. And I was like, "Geez, man, here's me worrying about a job, and your best mate's worrying about being alive for Christmas." And it puts everything into perspective for that one moment where you appreciate life. And, you know, again, I've mentioned it so many times in the past. We worry too much about getting to the other side of the woods that we tend to miss the trees as we're walking through the forest.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's what life is. Life is about the journey, not about the end goal. Life is about the journey. These conversations, meeting new people, learning new things, loving, feeling happiness, sadness, all these things. And emotions are something that I've only just learned to understand this year, and I'm truly, truly grateful for it. Um, Last question, or last topic, um, nutrition.
Mm.
So I came across a word called methylation a couple of months ago, and it's just really, I don't know, it's just, I love it. Love the nutritional aspect of epigenetics and the amplification of genetic coding into all this stuff. So I heard you talking about it the other day, Kim. So let's talk from a nutritional aspect of well-being, or even trauma. You might be able to tell me that there's nutrition that can help us deal with certain physical aspects of trauma. Maybe, I don't know, but if you could give me a little insight as to what you do with nutrition, that'd be brilliant.
Yeah. So I'm a nutritional therapist. I'm a naturopathic nutritional therapist. So what that means is that when I work with somebody, we look at the root, we go for the root cause. So they might have symptoms. If you go to a GP, they will give you a medication, which is short term, it's acute. They will give you a medication for that particular thing. What I will do is then sit with you and say, okay, so let's have a look right from when you were in your mum's tummy to now. Look at, did you have any trauma? How were you brought up? Do you know, what foods did you eat? What foods do you eat now? How many illnesses have you had? We'd go through everything, and we work on a cellular level. So all of that is considered. I go through every system in your body. So you might say to me, "Oh, Kim, I'm having anxiety attacks, okay, and I'm not sleeping." Okay, so we would look at that, and then what I would do is look at your gut microbiome, because there is a lot of connection with the gut microbiome and certain strains of lactobacillus or bifidobacterium that is connected with people who have trauma or have certain anxiety and things, that they are lacking in those. Okay, or they might have an abundance of certain other ones. There's also, they might have SNPs, which is called, it's a SNP is like a defect on one of your genes, and that's called a single nucleotide polymorphism. And that's where people have like the MTHFR SNP. Okay. And that can affect lots of things, not just methylation. It can affect lots of different things. People may have issues with their B vitamins, because some of the B vitamins obviously help you think B brain, okay? They help with your brain. So there's lots of different elements, all your hormones, the food you're eating, whether you're getting enough saturated fat in. You need saturated fat in your diet because your hormones are made from cholesterol, believe it or not. So you need to consider every aspect of it. And there's so much out there that people listen to, and they say, "Oh, well, they say this and someone says this." But when I work with someone, I work with the individual. So you could come to me, you could have a twin brother or sister. You would both have a completely different plan, because you live in different houses, you've got different lifestyles, you've got different, your landscape is different. So, so basically that's it. I go to the root cause of the problem and we work on it. The thing with nutritional therapy is, like I say, if you go to a doctor, they'll give you a pill. Literally within a week or two, you're going to feel different. Okay. Yeah. It's not going to make you better. It's going to make you feel different, unless it's like an antibiotic. Obviously, that tends to help you, but it then has an effect on your gut, which can affect your mood. It can affect your sleep. It can affect so many other things. But people would never consider that they were connected. So, but I would work with you from a nutritional perspective, looking at everything and lifestyle, but it takes longer. Because it takes this long to get this to where you are now. People say to me, "Oh, I've got pre-diabetes," and they think it's like, it's like a life sentence. "Oh my God, I got pre-diabetes." We can change that within a few months. Reverse it easily. It's not hard. It's so simple to do. But people I don't know that, because they're not told that. And we're not taught that. We're taught that if you get ill, you go and get a pill for an ill. So, but nutrition, I always have to try and explain that to people. You have to be committed to it, because it is going to take a long time. It's not an overnight fix, but it's also to do with your lifestyle. What washing powders are you using? What clothes are you wearing? People use plug-ins, the air fresheners. I used to be obsessed with them, and I had asthma so badly I couldn't even breathe. And now I know that my breathing was affected because of those things. So I won't have any of those things in my house. So it's crazy things that people don't realise. Perfumes, what you're putting on your skin, everything. It's all has an impact.
I had what's it called? Like a mild stroke about 12 months ago.
T T
Um, TIA.
TIA. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was sat on the sofa, and luckily enough, my missus is a district nurse, and I couldn't speak. But I just couldn't move.
Oh.
Like, I think my missus shouts at me when I say what my blood pressure was, because I don't know what the exact number was. So she says, "If you don't know the number, just don't say it, because you look like a liar." But I know it was over 200 plus to around 160 or something like that was my blood pressure. Um, and over the next couple of months, I got obsessed with taking my blood pressure, and it was always really, really high. But it doesn't help when you've abused alcohol, cigarettes, and cocaine for 20 years. So there's obviously going to be an issue there. And like I say, I'm a big boy. I'm 6'6", 20 odd stone. I took steroids in my 20s, so that's going to have a major effect as well. and just treated my body like shit for a long time. So, I wasn't shocked when they told me that I was pre-diabetic. I think I was on the verge of being diabetic. So I thought, okay, I was about 20, 25 stone, I think I was this time last year. Um, so started doing a lot of research, and I know how to look after myself. I understand nutrition as far as building muscle, but I never understand nutrition as I look after myself properly.
Mm.
So I started the carnivore diet at first, and it was just meat and eggs with a bit of cheese twice a day, once a day. And I'm down now. So what we now nearly in August, and I've lost about 4.5 stone, 5 stone nearly.
Wow,
Um,
amazing.
and I've just bought a juicer, so I'm going to implement juicing once a month for like a 72-hour fast once a month maybe. Um, and my kitchen's full of all sorts of ingredients and powders, and I love it. It really really interests me on how we're all individual, like you say,
Mm.
and it's just I started listening to Gary Brecker at first. That's where I came across the motherfucker gene, and I just started paying attention to all that stuff. But I think it's really valuable having somebody like you who's got the trauma aspect and how to improve that. But the nutritional aspect is so important because
Mm.
people ask me because I'm not a professional, but I get a lot of people asking for help now. But I'm getting good at what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, and it's working as well. And whenever somebody says, "What should I do first?" and I'd say, "Well, let's have a look at your diet, your sleep, and do you do any workouts, any training, or anything, whatever, whether that's nature." Me and my missus, we go down the coast to Anglesey. We found a beach. It's heaven, honestly. The forest is 10 meters off the beach, and then the water's there as you walk out the woods onto the. It's incredible, and we go there. We've been there 3 times in the last 3 weeks. When I'm feeling like shit, we'll go there, and jump in the sea for half an hour, and you feel good coming out of there. And before any of the work that you guys do, I think it's really important that we as individuals look at our nutrition. Shit in, shit out. Good in, good out.
Yep.
And people overlook that. And I did for a long time. I thought, why have I just had a stroke or a mild stroke? And then I looked and it's like, well, you drink, you smoke, you take drugs, and you eat shit food. And it's like, okay, that's probably why I've just had a stroke. Um, but yeah, I think it's really vital having that sort of nutritional skill, if you like.
People don't realise it. The amount of people that will say to me, "Oh, I've been to the doctors and I've got X, and now I've been given statins, and now I've given high blood pressure tablets, and I've been put on metformin, and I've got PPIs, and whatever." And I can't believe it. I can't believe I've got to take all these tablets. I've got to take my tablet. I've got to take my tablet. But then they'll go and get, I've got a Diet Coke though. Oh, good. That's helping you. Yeah. And I'm going to eat this processed meat. Okay, good. Oh, and I'm just going to heat my food up in my microwave. Oh, good. Yeah, and I'm just going to get this bag of vegetables and put them in the microwave because that's going to help me. Okay. People think they're doing the right thing, but they're actually not. And it's I get the money aspect and things like that, but there are so many ways around it. There's so many ways around it, and that I find it really sad. I find it really, we go to the supermarket and we laugh because we go to the market to get most of our fruit and veg, and we get kind of meats and fish for the retreats. We get that delivered, and we get our eggs, from the farm shop and whatever. But if we have to go to the supermarket to get some bits and pieces, and we walk along, and we will predominantly shop down 2 aisles. And our shopping goes on, and there is nothing in there that is processed. There is nothing with a packet with loads of writing on it and loads of ingredients. and we look at other people's and their colours, and you know, it's just so different. And it's interesting. People say, "Oh, that's the health food aisle." Well, hello. If that's the health food aisle, what are the others? What are you saying? Listen to what you're saying. And people don't. Oh, honestly, you should eat. I get on my high horse about all this. It's so frustrating, though.
You've only got, so I go to the butcher's once a month. I spend £150, fresh grass-fed meat, no fillers or ingredients mixed into their food. It's all fresh
Nice.
grass-fed, and I buy £150. It just goes in the freezer, and when I need it, I take it out.
Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, it's
And
good.
people say, "Oh, it's really expensive to eat fresh," and I'm like, "Well, I'll probably only eat twice a day." You know, as human beings, we weren't designed to eat 4 or 5 times a day. Once or twice a day, that
No.
was, you know, when we were cavemen, they'd eat once every 3 days, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll eat once or twice a day. I don't stick to it 100%. I do like to nibble now and then, but that's okay. That's fine.
Yep.
I love my favourite food, pizza. So if people think I'm giving that up, you've got no fucking chance.
You can get healthier pizzas, and you can make your own as well, which is quite nice. You put your
Yeah,
own toppings on. But with regards to that eating in the day, you know, there's something called the MMC. It's the migrating motor complex, and it's. I always think of it like Hong Kong Fooey, with his little broom going through, and basically your body needs to do that to clear out your from your mouth all the way through to your anus, like anus, it's your whole gut, the gastrointestinal tract. So it needs to do that cleaning out, and if we are constantly eating, that's not happening.
yeah, yeah,
So it's so important. And these are the kind of things that, you know, like people say, "Oh, I'm following this person on Instagram and they're brilliant, and I'm following their diet," but they're not qualified. They don't know what they're doing. They're just doing what they think is best, and because they're
yeah,
famous or whatever, they think that that's brilliant. But they might be not suitable for you, and it's really difficult, as like I say, as when you're qualified in this, to sit and watch or listen to people, especially friends, going, "Oh yeah, I'm following this person, and they were a comedian, but now they're talking about all this stuff, and I'm going to follow them because I really like them." But it's like, well, they're not really giving you the right advice, and they're not considering all of these other elements. The amount of people that go, "Oh, I'm going to go on a detox, I'm going to do this." You can actually cause yourself a lot of problems by going on a detox if all of your elimination processes are not working effectively. So there's like I said,
I think that's what I did when I came out of recovery. It's funny because when I came into recovery, I bent over. Bear in mind, I've lifted weights my whole life. I've leg pressed 700 kilo in me last year, and I bent over to pick the shopping bag up, and I collapsed like I'd been shot, and I burst 2 discs in my lower back. Um, but it was funny how it sort of, when I came into recovery, so I got rid of alcohol, drugs, and then all of a sudden, boom. And I just changed my diet as well. So I think I did it wrong. And my body's gone, shit, what's going on here? Bang. Um, but again, it's a process, and I'm learning, and I'm ensuring this time, 12 months, I'll be in a better physical state.
yeah,
Because I was in a shit state 12 months ago, and I'm doing all right now.
yeah.
Um,
Well, you look really healthy.
I'm trying, I'm getting there.
Yeah. Well, we
Um,
even last year, my son and your mum came out. We was in a shit state, and we just lived off Weetabix.
We did, and every day I'd say to Carl, "Oh my gosh, we should not be eating this." But we didn't have the brain power. We just couldn't. Like people used to go, "Oh, if I need, if we had flowers, loads of flowers, loads of cards." We did get some food parcels, but they were like cakes and things, which was lovely. And people were like, "Oh, if you need anything." Do you know what? I will never
okay.
ask for help. Never ever ask for help.
Yeah.
Really? What did I want? Somebody to come in and just clean the house and cook something for us. Just give us some vegetables, please. But obviously, I'm not going to ask anyone to do that. If somebody is in need, I go and do that for them. I always, like my cousin, her husband died. I went over there, I cooked, I gave her a massage, did Reiki on her and, all sorts, and cleaned her house. She was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you. Because these are the kind of things you can do to help people. People, don't get me wrong. It's lovely having a text message or a flowers or whatever to know that people, but just go and help people when they're in those situations. Because like I say, a family box of Weetabix and milk, real milk, which I don't drink, was not, you should drink milk. It's only me that doesn't drink it.
But it was our survival.
It was our survival. It's all we could have. That's all we could do.
Well, even
And
up
now
to
we're suffering.
6 months ago, I'd eat a whole family bag of crisps in one night with chocolate bourbon biscuits as a follow-up.
Oh, now you're talking. Don't threaten me with a good time, Carl.
Well, but this is it. And I suddenly piled on 2 stone. My blood pressure went back up to 220 some odd. And I thought, what the hell are you doing, Cole? So exactly like you, I've now gone back to eating maybe 1 or 2 meals a day.
Yeah.
All processed foods cut out. And the only thing that's ever brought my blood pressure down is going on a water fast for 3 days.
How did you find that?
The first time I'd done it, the second night was an absolute nightmare of some really vivid, weird dreams because I wasn't taking any minerals, putting salt in the water.
Celtic salt, yeah.
Yeah. But now I can quite easily go, I reckon I could probably do 7 days water fast if I wanted to. Yeah.
See, I've not done a water fast. So at the moment, I'm probably 16 to 8, no food for 16 hours, eating for 8 hours a day. I want to do a 3-day water fast. But I've not done it yet, so that's why I was asking.
No, I felt absolutely fantastic. The brain fog went, and I think about 2 years ago when it came, I'd done like a 30-day, done a 3-day water fast, and then I'd done the rest of the month juicing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just started.
Yeah.
And I felt the best for a long time doing that.
Mm.
Nice.
When we first met, it was great because we, like I say, we kind of realised that we had a lot in common. I mean, I'm a yoga teacher, and Carl used to do yoga every day, and then we both had a juicer, and we both had a smoothie maker, and it was quite funny because we're like, we definitely are aligned. And I wasn't a nutritionist at that point, but I am now. So yeah.
Yeah, medication never worked for me regarding blood pressure.
And I've been saying to him for years, it's the carbohydrates.
Yeah, it was
I'm telling.
carbs. Yeah.
And as soon as he took out the carbohydrates, boom, 130.
I always, so mine's around 130 now, 130 over 85 it was, I think, like I did it 2 weeks ago. And I'm a big believer. Don't get me wrong, I'll have carbohydrates sometimes. We'll have a Chinese every now and then, me and the missus with the kids, whatever. But I always operate better when I don't have carbs.
Yeah.
Always operate better when I don't have carbs.
But you do have carbs in there's carbs in your vegetables. There are carbohydrates that you get, natural carbohydrates, which is fine.
Yeah.
It's the starchy carbs, it's the breads and the pastas and all of that's what causes the problems.
Mm. Well, the body produces glycogen anyway, doesn't it? When we're eating, the body will naturally produce it, which is obviously what carbohydrates will turn the sugar into. I think it's glycogen, right? I've got one more question for both of you. This is something that I ask everybody before we finish. This has been probably one of the longest conversations I've had. If you could sit 4 people around a dinner table from the past, it could be family members, your heroes, your idols, anybody from the past, what 4 people would they be? And obviously, both these answer separately.
Go on, Kim.
No, you go first.
Who would I pick? I'd pick my mum and my son. I'd pick Jesus. And then I'd pick Buddha.
Okay.
You reckon they'd have a fight?
Depends whose religion they believe in.
Well, Buddha was one of mine, actually. I was going to say Buddha. I would pick, I could never say his name, Hippocrates. Yeah. Just because of, let food be thy medicine. And I would really like to, I've always been fascinated with Elvis Presley. I just think it would be fascinating to listen to him. And the Queen.
Nice.
And what about yourself?
So I've been asked it a few times, and I always answer it differently. I had, the further I go down the line, I think I'd have my grandmother and my grandfather, because they practically, I class them, or rightfully or wrongfully, I've seen them as my parents for a long time. And that's nothing against my mother. Me and my mother are building a relationship now, but that's what I did. Achilles, Trojan warrior, or the Greek warrior who fought in Troy. I've got his tattoo on my forearm. There are no pacts between lions and men. That's something that Achilles said. And a fourth would probably be Buster Martyr, Mike Tyson's boxing coach.
All right.
Very philosophical man, knew the art of war, knew boxing inside out. The man was a master tactician and just an all-round genius. For me, Mike Tyson's the greatest boxer ever made. Physically, mentally not so much, but as a physical boxer, Mike Tyson was in his prime. He was unbeatable, and that was all down to, when Mike Tyson was born, Custer Martin was 67 years old, and it was fate how they came together and he created this boxing icon. So I'd love to sit around the table and listen to it. I could listen to him all night. I wouldn't say a word. I'd just sit there and listen. So they'd probably be my four at this moment in time until I get asked again.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
That you kind of flip that on us. It's like, here's one question, and we can all say this. You're on your deathbed. What's the very one thing that you look back on your life and hope you achieved? Love. Kim?
Was yours love as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
You
all
can't
about
take anything with you, and love isn't. It's like we said, people who abused or whatever still have that love, that connection. You can't explain it. It's powerful.
There's a great movie called Conversation with God.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Have you seen that film?
No.
There's a saying in there. It always says, ask yourself, what would love do in that moment?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got me thinking.
Yeah.
It's got me thinking. I'll think about that for the next 2 fucking weeks now.
Gifts for you.
What would love do?
Yeah. Listen, I'll let you go. I really appreciate your time. And it's been brilliant. I've took a lot from it. I'll definitely integrate a lot of what you guys have said into my way of thinking, my way of communicating. And where and whenever there's people who need the help that I think you guys can provide them, I'll gladly send them your way, because I think it's brilliant. And yeah, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really
Thank you.
appreciate it.